Yo, what's up? My name's Patrouski, and I want to say first things first, obviously there is no right way to play PokeMMO. You can do whatever you want in this game. I honestly think PokeMMO is more of a sandbox game than an MMO sometimes, and that's why this video is just meant to give some players some direction and help you find which style of gameplay you enjoy by the time you defeat all 5 regions within PokeMMO. The overarching theme of this video is going to be recommending you guys to complete one region and do one storyline, and then do one piece or 2 pieces of endgame PokeMMO content until you get bored, and then do your second region, and then rinse and repeat. Do a storyline, do a piece of endgame content, do another storyline, do a piece of endgame content, do another storyline, rinse and repeat until you have all areas of the game unlocked. And if you do this, then by the time you get all 5 regions done, you'll understand what do you enjoy about PokeMMO and where to go from there. So step 1 has to be to complete your first region. This is going to unlock access to level 100 Pokemon and you being able to have a max obedience level of 100. That's going to allow you to shiny hunt, EV train, XP train, do all sorts of content. But let's just start with, for now, make sure to get one region done. Some people like to do all of the regions combined by kind of managing their max obedience level and going in between each region once they get 4 gym badges. If you like to do that, awesome, good for you. But I recommend to the average player to just get one region completely done and then go from there. If you're wondering what region you should do, I have an entire video called What's the Best Region in PokeMMO, where I break down the positives and negatives of each region, as well as my recommended completion order and my power rankings. However, I do recommend for your first region to honestly just start with your favorite region. It's going to help you have the most fun in PokeMMO and make the most progress, and make sure you stick around. However, if your favorite region is Johto, I would personally wait until 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, or even 5th region to do Johto. I think Johto is the hardest region to do from scratch. Your first region will be the hardest region. You don't have access to items, Pokeyen, good Pokemon in general, that level 100 that we talked about, you know, all these things. You don't have access to that in your first region. It's the most difficult. You don't have access to the global trade link yet. You don't have access to the markets yet until you have 4 gym badges. Now, while I do think that Johto has actually the easiest Elite Four in PokeMMO, it has the hardest storyline because there are 2 boss fights that you must prepare for, with the Lake of Rage Gyarados fight and the Ho-Oh fight. If you pick up the right Pokemon, like an Ampharos heading into Gyarados, or any sort of Rock Slide spammers for Ho-Oh, it can be a bit of a cakewalk, but unless you have those specific Pokemons, both of those fights will stop up new players very commonly. So complete your first region, play your favorite region, unless it's Johto. Maybe wait on that one. If you want more information, check out my video on what's the best region within PokeMMO. And now we have our first post-storyline activity. For each of these, we're going to have number 1 be to complete a storyline, and then the sub point, like here, to be doing some piece of endgame content or even working towards the progress of your account. So here, for the sub point under completing your first region, 1.5, you'll want to go ahead and catch or buy some good storyline Pokemon, and then EV train them for your future storylines. Now that all sounds really confusing, Patrouski. Can you keep things simple? Yes, I can. What I recommend, for example, if you are in the Kanto region, is go buy yourself or go catch yourself some good Magikarps over in the Kanto Safari Zone. You can head over to Fuchsia City and spam Old Rods. You'll get 30 Safari Balls for only 500 Pokeyen, which would cost you much more for this other Pokeballs in the outer world, the non-Safari world of Pokemon. So now we can head over here, go find our Old Rod in Kanto, make sure to keybind that accordingly, and go ahead and fish, and you can get a ton of Magikarps. And you're looking for Magikarps with 20 plus in the attack and speed IV, and ideally lonely, naughty, or adamant natures. Now to speed things up, I do recommend rocking and then balling. You can just ball if you get a shiny. I actually recommend just spamming Safari Balls. That's your best chance. But for catching Magikarps quickly, rocking and then balling is better. You can catch a ton of Magikarps very quickly. And if you wanted to, you could actually sell some of these for Pokeyen, but nowadays it's not as good to sell 1x31s like this for Pokeyen. This is just a good way to get decent storyline Pokemon. So you would go ahead and catch something like this Magikarp. And this one's fine. If you wanted to just go EV train this, you could. I wouldn't recommend it. I recommend staying here for a little bit longer, but you're looking to EV train a Pokemon in the stats that it needs. Let's go use this Scrafty as an example, the shiny Scrafty. I've EV trained it in attack and HP. To EV train something means to kill a specific horde of Pokemon over and over and over again to get the right stats in a specific Pokemon. But feel free to sit here for as long as you would like and catch as many Magikarps as you want to. It's almost never wasted time. It's a really solid beginner activity to do for some decent Pokeyen and your future storyline Pokemon. Now that we have our first region completed, we can make Pokemon, EV train and XP train, and prepare them for the future storylines, which will save you so much time and make your future storylines that much easier. You do not want to head into your future storylines doing everything from scratch all over again. Then you're disregarding the experience and the time you've put in to hopefully make that experience easier. But once you're done catching Magikarps, you can go ahead and go EV train them, and I'll show you where to do that in Kanto. But I do have multiple EV training guides on my channel if you're looking for locations as well, or just the basics on how to EV train. PokeMMO is a very complicated game, and for a lot of people, it teaches people for the first time about things like EVs and IVs, the most common hidden stats within Pokemon. And the best way to learn is just by Googling. I know it sounds silly, but we live in a day and age where there are tons of guides and detailed information out there, forum posts, YouTube videos, whatever it may be, teaching us about PokeMMO. If you just Google every single question you have about the game, you will learn very, very quickly. And that's the whole purpose of my channel. That's what I'm here to try to do. If you ever feel like I haven't answered a question sufficiently enough, or you're still confused, feel free to always leave comments, and I do my best to get back to people as soon as possible. But EV training a Magikarp in Kanto would look something like this. You would go ahead and catch whatever Magikarps you need, and then go grab whatever XP shares you have. You might only have one XP share because you only have Kanto done so far, and that is okay. You can EV train one Pokemon at a time, since we're not going to be fully EV training everything. Usually when EV training for the storyline, you're actually going to stop once that Pokemon is around level 20, because at the beginning of each storyline, you can only use Pokemon up to level 20. But if you bring like 3 Gyarados at level 20 to Brock, the first gym in Kanto, you're gonna stop him. And the same is true for pretty much every other storyline in the game. And if you need to, you can always travel back to your one completed region to EV train and XP train here further to help make your storylines easier. Your first storyline should be the most difficult. That is okay, that is normal, but there is no need to make your other storylines after your first one so darn difficult. And I feel like it's one of the #1 things I see new players make a mistake on in PokeMMO is under-prepare for their future storylines. So now that we have an XP share on our Magikarp, we want a Pokemon with Sweet Scent. PP maxing it is definitely worth it, and you will be able to use that long term. But if you don't have that, it is okay. And then you want a Pokemon with just Surf. You could use Discharge or any sort of other AoE move, any sort of spread move, but I think most players will have Surf at this point. So I'm going to lead with this Pikachu. I'm going to go ahead and surf down this horde of Nidorino specifically over to the east of Fuchsia City. If you use Sweet Scent at this patch of grass over here, you will get ×5 hordes of Nidorino, and they will give you +10 attack EVs per defeating the hordes. You can see this Magikarp just gained +10 attack EVs, and that's going to give it a much more boosted attack stat, of course. And I would go ahead and sit here and EV train this Magikarp until it got to level 20. Once it gets to level 20, you want to go ahead and stop, even if it's not fully EV trained. You can come back and finish EV training it, or have it be a bit sloppy, since it is just a storyline Pokemon. You do not need perfect Pokemon to complete the storylines. You just want things that are good enough and will help make your journey a lot faster. But that is the basics of completing your first region and then catching some Pokemon or buying some decent Pokemon and then EV training them. Let's move on to completing your second region. All right, step number 2, go ahead and complete your second region. Yep, it's that easy. Once you have the knowledge of EV training, and if you need storyline guides, I do have storyline guides for every individual storyline here on my channel for Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, Unova, Sinnoh, everything, right? Go ahead and complete your second region, go through the storyline. It'll be so much easier now with these EV trained Pokemon. But if you happen to get stuck, I do have tons of guides on my channel on good Pokemon to complete the storylines with, tips and tricks, things like using stealth rocks. There are so many resources, once again, available these days on the internet. And alright, we kept it simple after completing your first region because that is ideal, but now, after completing your second region, you are opening up more of the game and you have more opportunities and more options. I do recommend returning to EV training and even learning about some XP training, which I have guides for on my channel. And this is where I think you can really start worrying about Pokeyen. I wouldn't recommend worrying about making Pokeyen after your first storyline, but after your second storyline, I think you can start doing some beginner things like EV training and XP training for profit. Or if you have something like Hoenn done, you could do some Nincada catching for profit or Ditto catching for profit if you have the right utility Pokemon. EV training and XP training for profit is really that simple. It is buying a Pokemon and then training it up and then selling it for more profit because you saved someone else some time. If I were to go look for a Magikarp on the GTL with 20 plus attack and speed and then adamant nature and then sort by cheapest price, there's actually a really good deal that's only been up for 7 minutes, and that's going to cost about 3,000 pokes. That's a really good deal actually. However, the average person for you guys, it might cost like 15,000 Pokeyen. That's probably going to be the realistic cost. Now a Gyarados, however, with those stats can sometimes be a bit more, as you can see, being 18,000 Pokeyen. But if we go over to the advanced search and look for attack EVs and look for like 100 or even like 252 actually, let's do 252 attack and speed EVs because that's what a completely EV trained Gyarados is going to look like. We can go ahead and search, and that's going to be a minimum of 24k, and if you leveled up to 50 or so, that's going to help. EV training and XP training Pokemon can be a really good way for beginners to make some decent Pokeyen, and there's just so many layers to this, but when it comes down to it, just putting energy and time into Pokemon usually does yield some profit. But you want to be careful as a new player. You don't just want to go train every Pokemon willy-nilly. You do want to go ahead and take your time because putting your money that you do have into something is a little scary, and then waiting for it to sell can take some time. That's why catching your own Pokemon early on is a lot more beneficial as a new player, catching your own Pokemon and then training them up. But if you feel confident on it, feel free to go ahead and buy some things. Or some good things to EV train and XP train for profit are the same Pokemon we're about to talk about in step number 2, which is getting some utility Pokemon. Every player needs utility Pokemon. This includes things like utility Pokemon can consist of things like a Catching Breloom, which will often have 20 plus in attack and speed, and then a plus attack nature is ideal, but obviously I've been using this Breloom since 2021, and even my Breloom isn't perfect. A Catching Smeargle is also nice. Now, different Smeargles have different movesets, and do as I say, not as I do. Don't go for a Calm Smeargle. This one's worked for me since 2021, but it is not ideal. I definitely need to upgrade. This is a good example of how much worse players used to be back, just 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we just used to be a lot worse at the game, and a lot of other things used to be acceptable that nowadays, as the player base gets better, just kind of aren't. You do want to upgrade these where possible. And then you also have things like that EV training Pikachu that I was showing off earlier that has Sweet Scent, Surf, and Discharge, or even like high-level damp Pokemon that are just Pokemon with good HMs. Quagsire, Bibarel's a good HM Pokemon, Dragonite. There's tons of things you can EV train and XP train for good profits, or get for yourself for your own account progression. These are Pokemon that you will use while just traversing all over the PokeMMO world. You will take these to many locations, many catch events, shiny hunting events, everything. And then finally, tip number 3 is to keep an eye out for alpha spawns. You might have noticed this Pikachu having a red outline. That's because he comes from something that is called an alpha spawn or an alpha swarm. These happen about every 6 hours, and you will usually see on the map like, oh, an alpha swarm has appeared. Obviously there is not one right now. You can also join my Discord using the link in the description, and there are alpha pings which you can sign up for and get notified on Discord whenever there is an alpha spawn. Alpha catches are really good for new players sometimes, even though they may be difficult. I do recommend trying to suck up on some timer balls if you can, whether you have Sinnoh completed, the Unova storyline done. I have a few videos on where to buy those types of balls, or even just getting a few off the GTL, just in case you have the opportunity to run and encounter an alpha. They are very difficult to catch for new players, and there are strategy guides out there on how to catch them efficiently and consistently. But keep an eye out for alpha Pokemon. They could be a really good way to jumpstart some of your Pokeyen, with the average cost being around 30 to 40,000 Pokeyen. Sometimes something as a simple male-gendered Dragon Age group alpha Pokemon will go for a minimum of 70,000 Pokeyen. People actually use these to shiny hunt alphas, which are called Shalfas. So they're in very high demand. So getting 70,000 Pokeyen as a new player is going to save you a ton of time. Next up, finally, step number 3 is going to be to go ahead and complete your 3rd region. This is really going to unlock a lot more money-making methods in the Pokemon you have access to. If you have Sinnoh done at this point, you've now unlocked trainer reruns, for example, which is a really consistent 200,000 or so Pokeyen per hour, which you can do every 6 hours as long as you have 1 to 2 Pokemon built for it. If you have Hoenn done, you can catch Dittos for profit. If you have Sinnoh, you can do Rotoms or Gibbles or certain rare things like that specific to Sinnoh. If you have Unova done, you can start doing gym reruns. If your first 2 regions completed are Unova and Hoenn, or like Unova and Kanto, you could start doing a lot of this early as well, but typically I would say around 3 regions is where people really start to get into money making. This is where consistency really starts to kick in. You can make about 500,000 Pokeyen per hour by doing a beginner Jimmy run and a trainery run every single day if you have the teams built, which will cost some upstart Pokeyen, but generally you can build both Pokemon or all Pokemon you need, both teams, for less than that 500k you make in the first day. Once again, I have in-depth guides on all of this, and this video is not meant to be a full in-depth guide on everything, more of an overview and an index for you to follow. But a beginner Jimmy Run team is usually going to look something like this: a sacrificial Cottony with Tailwind and Memento. You can go a prankster Murkrow here, a hidden ability Murkrow with Tailwind and Fly as well. You want to upgrade to Cottony later on because Memento is relevant for KOing itself just in case, but if you don't have a Fly Ocarina, it is nice to go ahead and start with a Murkrow, or you could have some backup Pokemon in your party with Fly as well. That totally works. A low level Drought Explosion Torkoal with bad stats. Same with the Cottony. You want bad stats and nature on this. They do not matter. They're just there to be sacrificial and double your damage and double your speed. And then you bring in the classic double Eruption Typhlosions with choice specs, 25 plus Spatak and speed, and then modest, mild, or rash natures. You can upgrade to other Jimmy Run teams in the future, but I think this is the best beginner Jimmy Run team. It's very simple, very consistent, and very easy. You just run into the same fights over and over and over again, doing the same strategy. For trainer reruns, a 2x31 Adamant, Lonely, or Naughty Cloyster used to be the best option, and it still is a solid option and is a bit cheaper, a fair bit cheaper these days, to build than an Articuno, but you might also want to look into a 2x31 Attack and Speed, Naughty, Adamant, or Lonely, ignore this nature here, Icicle Spear, and Loaded Die Articuno. These have become very good because they get access to a secret ability. If you move your Articuno to the front of your party, they have something called Coalescence. If you have Kanto done, you could also farm your own Articuno for free if it is the month of its spawning, but that gets into roaming legendaries, and that'll come up later in tip 4.5 or 5.5. But Articuno will give you a chance during your trainery run to have a small chance to spawn an elemental orb, which will add a little bit of extra Pokeyen to your trainer runs. Now, if all of this is still too confusing or too overwhelming, you can actually do something called Kanto Island runs. And this is more so an old strategy that we used to do in 2013 PokeMMO, but simply running through all of the islands 1 through 7 in Kanto and just fighting every single trainer you run into and defeating them can earn you decent Pokeyen, probably about 100 to 150,000 Pokeyen per hour. You do want to be popping amulet coins for most of these strategies, and there's no real route these days that I know of for the Kanto Islands. This is really an old school strategy, and I wouldn't recommend it, but if you just wanted some simple Pokeyen early, it is totally valid to just run around the islands and refight some trainers. If you haven't fought them for the first time, they won't have these exclamation marks over their head, but if you have refought them before, they might be able to show you, let you know that you can go ahead and refight them. So if you go beat up this Bird Keeper, for example, which I can easily defeat by just spamming Icicle Spear on my Cloyster, no problem, one-shotting everything, you'll earn a little bit of Pokeyen. It's not much, but sometimes that early 2k or so consistently by just defeating trainers, and that would be plus 50%, it would be about 3k or so if you had an amulet coin popped, is just enough money to go ahead and get started. As a new player, it is difficult to understand how to price check Pokemon, how to sell things, what to price them at. It's all very overwhelming and difficult. So sometimes just pure yen methods like this that are super simple are ideal to start with and recommend, and you can upgrade to proper trainer rerun routes or Jimmy runs in the future. Speaking of learning how to price check though, it is an incredibly crucial tool, and I'm going to show you where to Ditto catch and Nincada catch, which are both in Hoenn. You can actually Ditto catch in Johto, but you can really only do that at nighttime, and my Ditto catching guides will properly explain that. You have to at least start at nighttime, and if you catch 15 Dittos in a row, you could continue doing it outside in Johto, but I recommend for the most part being over in Hoenn. It is nice to move over to Johto for legendary chance though, to be fair, if you can, but once again, this is all explained in more detail in my actual Ditto catching guides. Thankfully, Ditto catching is honestly super simple these days. You want to head over to Falibor Town in Hoenn and then head inside of this cave right here. and then just keep heading backwards into this little desert cave type area. And you want to have a Smeargle with False Swipe, Spore, and then 2 moves that don't do damage. That is very important here. You also want safety goggles. This is a must, and if you don't have this, I would just delay this strategy until you get access to them. But you want to run back and forth. There's about a 40 to 60% chance here to run into Dittos. The spawn rate is very, very high, making this very consistent. Ditto farming is one of the most common strategies you'll see alt accounts doing because it is pretty low brain power once you learn the actual rotation, and it's pretty easy to consistently do on the side. You want to head and go for a false swipe into a Spore and then throw a Dust Ball whenever you are ready. After you catch 15 Dittos in a row, you can use repeat balls, which are 100 Pokeyen cheaper. However, if you catch anything other than a Ditto, it's going to break that chain and that streak. So repeat balls are a little complicated, and I recommend doing it if you're going to be here for a long time. But if you're just testing things out, go ahead and use your Dust Ball, and make sure to keybind the balls you're using. This is a new mechanic in PokeMMO over the past year or so, and it saves a lot of time. I believe you'll usually catch your Ditto in about 1.5 Dust Balls on average, so somewhere between 1 to 2 Dust Balls is usually what it takes, which does cost you a fair bit of Pokeyen, but thankfully, Dittos have a really good base price. You can sell every single Ditto or Shitto in PokeMMO, aka Ditto with shit IVs or bad IVs, for at least 5,000 Pokeyen. And this is going to teach you a lot of things. Ditto farming is fantastic for new players because it teaches you, number one, consistency and grinding and just selling your Pokemon, your Dittos for good consistent Pokeyen. It also teaches you about something called Pokemon boxes, which is instead of selling your Shittos on the GTL, which you should almost never do. If you have a few of them, you want to move them quickly, fair enough, go ahead. But I severely recommend selling to something called Ditto box buyers. People need tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands even of Dittos to do rare shiny hunting in PokeMMO. There's always a very strong demand for Dittos. You almost never see Ditto boxes sit around. If you are trying to sell Ditto boxes and they aren't moving quickly, I would say you're probably not in the right spot. There are tons of Ditto box buyers who are willing to pay an arm and a leg to consistently have Ditto boxes. And every time you sell a Ditto on the GTL, you are losing 1,000 Pokeyen to the listing fee. It costs 1,000 yen to list the Ditto, but if you sell to a person directly, you're making an extra 1,000 Pokeyen per Ditto. That is a really, really big deal. That means every Shittos that you sell, you're saving yourself 60,000 Pokeyen. This is also going to be a good entry point to just stick to one market, just learning Dittos and understanding how to price good IV Dittos, good IVs plus nature, certain IV placements. Price checking in PokeMMO is very difficult and very overwhelming, and it's a skill that people are always improving on. I do have a ton of guides on price checking on my channel, but I would like to do an updated one soon as well. So make sure to subscribe and like the video and keep an eye out for that coming in the future. Next up is Nincada farming, which is probably one of the best new player money-making methods in the game. Similar to Dittos, Nincadas also have a pretty decent base price because people use them for Shedinja shunting. Now, that's a bit to explain that I'm not going to do right now, but Nincadas will be anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 Pokeyen typically. Right now, as I'm making this video, they're on the super high end at 5,000 Pokeyen a piece. Nincadas, similarly to Dittos, you do want to sell them as a box, aka 60 Nincadas, to a Shedinja shunter. But if you want to sell them on the GTL, you just want to farm a few as a new player to make some startup capital, go ahead and do so. Nincadas can be farmed over here at a common encounter rate to the east of Rustboro City, and they are very, very easy to catch and very low cost comparatively to Dittos. Dittos cost about 2,000 Pokeyen or so per catch in Dust Balls. With Nincadas, you only need to throw Pokeballs, which are 200 Pokeyen a piece. They're super, super cheap. You can also catch Skitties over here at this spot because sometimes Skitties have a good base price, as people will also egg shiny hunt for Skitties. So as you can see, the cheapest male Skitty right now is 4,000 Pokeyen, but I bet you the cheapest female Skitty is actually more expensive, a little bit more, 5,000 Pokeyen, because people want those to do their egg shiny hunting. So go ahead and feel free to catch these as well if you want, but Nincadas are much easier for sure. Skitties have a bit of a difficult catch rate. All right, but here's our Nincada, and these are super easy. You just want to false swipe them, and you don't even have to spore them. Just false swipe into Pokeball, and it should be around a 100% catch rate. And once again, keep in mind, every time I do this, I'm effectively making at least 4,000 Pokeyen at the current time of recording, but this does fluctuate. Sometimes they will get as cheap as 2,000 Pokeyen. It just depends on how many people are catching Nincadas. Also, a quick correction on Skitty. I'm so sorry about this. Apparently, Skitty is a much easier catch rate than I expected, and I'm glad I double checked. You can actually false swipe and just Pokeball Skitty the same way you do Nincada, and it should be a 99% catch rate. Skitty is a rare spawn though over at this location, so you should run into much fewer of them comparatively to Nincadas, but I happened to run into a Skitty before my Nincada encounter here today. And on to step number 4, complete your 4th region. It's this simple at this point. I trust that you have the game knowledge, the understanding to go ahead and just crush another region whenever you feel up to it. I think the more interesting thing here is what you do after completing your 4th region, and here's where some of the 2 biggest style of endgame pieces of content come up: PvP and shiny hunting. Specifically for PvP, I do have a complete beginner's guide on how to get into PvP, but I cannot help you beyond that. PvP is a very deep, complicated system within PokeMMO, and I heavily encourage you to check out PvP content creators and people who are much better than I at PvP. I can help you get started, but I cannot help you master it. Randoms PvP is my biggest recommendation for new players because it helps you jump into PvP without even needing a team. Randoms PvP will supply the Pokemon for you and just throw you straight into a match. With Randoms PvP, you can earn free good items, things like Choice Specs, Toxic Orb, or even free competitive or PvP or PvM Pokemon. Free battle points, which should be used to buy other important items or special moves to be learned on certain Pokemon. And make sure to just play ranked when it comes to PvP and PokeMMO. A lot of people go sign up for casual because they see the word ranked and they get scared. There is no reason to play casual in PokeMMO. Nobody plays it. There are no rewards. Your rank doesn't really matter unless you really care about like climbing to the high end. But even then, it's better to just have a low rank and get rewards and benefits and then learn and then try to get a high rank in the later seasons. You can always improve, and it's good to see your rank and actually try to work on that improvement. One of the most difficult things of PvP and PokeMMO is you have to be prepared to lose, and lose a lot you will. And you have to just learn something from every single loss and every single win if possible. PvP and PokeMMO can be really difficult to get into, but the only way is to keep trying and never give up. And when you finally start to learn the randoms movesets and what players do and how to predict them, PokeMMO PvP becomes incredibly satisfying. But randoms PvP is very different from constructed PvP, and try not to learn bad habits from it and take those over to things like OU. In randoms PvP, for example, a big part of the game is the information. Your team is a secret to your opponent. And let's say you have a team that is 5 of your Pokemon are like weak to a fire type, and your opponent leads with a fire type. You don't want them to know that you're super weak to that, and you want to start kind of chipping that fire type Pokemon down and looking for your end game and understanding, how do I get rid of that fire type Pokemon so that I can open up the rest of my team. You might want to take some trades that look bad on the surface but are actually good because you know the information that your opponent doesn't have. But if PvP isn't your thing, definitely try out shiny hunting. That's kind of what I got into and got known for within PokeMMO. There are so many good free shiny hunts in PokeMMO. The number one mistake that I see new shiny hunters do is just try to get too fancy and too complicated too quickly. Don't worry about shiny charms or donator status as a new player or new shiny hunter within PokeMMO. Just do ×5 hordes near a PC. It is the fastest shiny hunts in the game, and there are tons of cool Pokemon that you can shiny hunt. Things like Druddigon, which is right to the north of Icarus City. If you pop a sweet scent right here inside of Dragon Spiral Tower, you'll see Druddigon, and Druddigon's a fantastic shiny with crazy wacky colors all over. If you don't know what shiny Druddigon looks like, it looks like this. It's one of my favorite ones. It's not for everybody since it is so wacky and crazy, but there are some other good beginner options. Things like Magikarp over in Sootopolis City, or Heatmore, which is also right here in Unova. Heatmore was one of the most underrated shiny hunts in PokeMMO for a very long time, but I think it's finally getting the credit it deserves. It is right over by the Elite Four in Unova, and if you head all the way west and then head straight down, you can do sweet scents on this little scraggled rock right here and get ×5 hordes of Heatmore. You can also Frisk Thief here for Flame Orbs and make about 100,000 Pokeyen per hour while shiny hunting a very cool shiny. I have guides for this on my channel once again. And then if you fly to this location in Unova, sorry, a lot of these shiny hunts are in Unova. There's tons of good ×5 horde shiny hunts all over PokeMMO. If you're looking for something, let me know in the comments. And I also have videos covering good beginner shiny hunts. But over here, you can actually sweet scent, and this is a split spot. So there's half Dino and half Durant. People love shiny dragons, things like shiny Dino or Hydreigon. This is a free shiny hunt, which is really, really cool in my opinion. It does not cost you any Pokeyen at all. You want to just fly back to the PC and make sure that you heal up after using all of your sweet scents, and then fly back to that location and do it over and over again for about 30 hours. Once again, shiny hunting isn't for everybody, and PvP isn't for everybody, and EV training isn't for everybody, and XP training, and flipping, and all these things. The whole point of this video is just to give you guys some direction and some ideas and help you test a little bit of everything and find what you enjoy. And then finally, next up, you want to go ahead and complete your 5th and final region. And when you do this, I just want to say congratulations. This is a massive step in your PokeMMO career. You have now unlocked all of the locations, or almost all the locations in the game. You have a lot of access to things. This is like getting level 60 in World of Warcraft or defeating the Ender Dragon in Minecraft. Now you have access and opportunities available, and it's time to capitalize. But a lot of players don't get here, and it takes a long time to get here. I understand that the long-term, how long-term PokeMMO is just not for everybody, but when you get there and you achieve it, it is something beautiful and unique when it comes to gaming. Now that you've completed your 5th and final region, let's talk about what you can do. At this point, in my opinion, there is too much content to be featured in one video, and that's been the case for the entire video, but we're going to try to touch on a few major things. First things first, I recommend starting to work on completing your Pokedex immediately. Getting access to Mount Silver is what you get when you complete your Pokedex in PokeMMO, and it is a super cool, really important endgame area within PokeMMO. Unlocking Mount Silver gives you access to the best XP training spot in the game, which is why there's this giant pile of players here at Channel 2 even. It gives you access to many of the best EV training spots in the game, like the Poliwhirl spawn down here, which a lot of players are also down there. You also get the best spot to shiny hunt Tyranitar and Larvitar in the game. You get access to the Red Refight, one of the best money-making methods in the game. You also get access to a unique one-time Alpha Tyranitar catch that you can go ahead and do, which I believe that Tyranitar is like 3 times 31 guaranteed, and obviously worth a fair bit because you only get one of these per account. So the cheapest one right now is about 340,000 Pokeyen, and those Tyranitars also have a bunch of small little ads on the side that have hidden ability access and are high level, and these will be 2 times 31 guaranteed and can also fetch some good extra Pokeyen. Mount Silver truly is the endgame location within PokeMMO, and it's pretty new to the game. It's only been in the game since Johto was added, which was about 2.5 years ago at the point of recording. And then next up, you can work on roaming legendaries. This includes things like Zapdos, Articuno, Moltres, all the Johto beasts, so Entei, Suicune, and Raikou as well. I have full videos explaining these in detail, how to hunt them, where to hunt them, and all the extra little tips and tricks you may want to watch out for. But in general, you just want to run back and forth in these regions while not in a cave. That's very important. Just run back and forth and hope for the best. We think that they are about a 1 in 5,000 rate, but nobody actually knows for sure, as the developers have never confirmed how rare the roaming legendaries are. Next up, you can work on permanent raids. There are things like Heatran, things like nowadays we have the Justice trio in the game. So we have Virizion, Cobalion, Terrakion, Meloetta, Cresselia, Heatran. Like I mentioned, there are tons of permanent legendary raids. These are the big daddy PVM challenges within PokeMMO. You can see on my main account, I've only done Heatran. I haven't even done these ones. I've been too busy with other goals and activities, but I would love to get to all of these at some point. I have, you know, once again, I have almost 12,000 hours at this point, including like the 3 main accounts that I play, and I still have not done, I haven't touched certain things within Pokemon. That's how much there is to do in this game. I played for 12,000 hours, and I feel like there's so many things I've barely skimmed the surface on. Event season prep is also a massive deal in PokeMMO, and if you are a newer player and event season is around the corner, event season typically happens from October 31st until around mid-February to late January, depending on when the Lunar New Year takes place that year. Event season consists of the Halloween event, the Christmas event, and the Lunar New Year event within PokeMMO, and it is some of the best Pokeyen, the best progress. It's the events that bring all of the like riches, charms, and powerful items into the game, as well as it brings in a bunch of new vanities. All the new vanities, most new vanities come into PokeMMO through events. So just keep an eye out. Event season is a really big deal in PokeMMO. It's usually when a lot of the updates come out as well. It's a very overwhelming time to be a PokeMMO player, but it's also very exciting for those reasons. And I have full guides, tons of guides on how to prepare for event season as a whole, explaining event season, as well as how to prepare for individual events each year. Those events will also come with their own legendary Pokemon. So for example, I believe with the Christmas event, you have access to the Jirachi raid. Last year, we saw an Alpha Articuno raid for the very first time, and that was like a fun little quick, impromptu thing nobody saw coming. There is the Shaman raid every single year during the Lunar New Year event. Fun fact, Shaman is one of the only Pokemon in the game that has still not been confirmed to someone have a shiny of it. It is not shiny locked. It is confirmed to be able to be gotten shiny by the PokeMMO devs. No one's gotten one yet. It's been in the game for about 3 to 4 years, I think, at this point, and still no one has gotten a Shaman. And then finally, you could consider joining a team, because at the end of the day, MMOs are a lot about the memories you make alongside other people. Whether you're introverted, extroverted, you can find the right team for you. You can still interact with people, even if you're an introvert. You can still grind PokeMMO as a mostly solo journey, but alongside other people, and still being invested in other people's journeys, still making friends. PokeMMO is a great type of MMO, in my opinion, very similar to old school RuneScape, because whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, you can either hang out in Discord with the boys and shiny hunt together if you are super extroverted, or you could shiny hunt quietly in your own room. But then when you get something in team chat, or someone else gets something in team chat, you can say, dude, congratulations, I know you've been hunting for that shiny Shroomish for the past 2 years now, like, I'm so happy you got that. It's such a cool thing to see, and being invested in other people's journeys in PokeMMO is just memories you can't create those in any other way. They're just so damn unique and so damn special, and PokeMMO will give you memories that you will treasure 10, 20, 30 years from now. But that is the final thing I wanted to talk about in today's video. As always, this video ended up being a little bit longer than I expected. I did put a lot of time into scripting and outlining this video. If you found it helpful, say thank you for all the hard work and hopefully all the benefits it is to your PokeMMO career and journey by liking the video. That's free. Subscribing for daily PokeMMO videos. I do upload every single day almost. I stream Monday through Thursday on Twitch at 12 p.m. ET. My Discord's down below if you're interested in that. And if you want to go above and beyond and support the content, YouTube memberships, Twitch Primes, Twitch subs, and PayPal and Venmo donations do allow me to be here. But I will see you guys later with more PokeMMO tips and tricks. Hopefully you guys found this video helpful, and most importantly, have a great day and good luck on your PokeMMO journey. Yo, what's up? Outro Patrouski here, and I wanted to say thank you so much to everybody's name who is on this list. You really allow me to make the content that I do every single day, and I hope I can make it worth your guys' while and add to your PokeMMO journey. Thanks again so much for watching the entire video, and have a great day.